Well, if opportunities doesn't knock your door, build a wider door. That's what I believe. Be wise. Instead of counting your failures, instead of counting all your challenges, it's time for us to embrace the success and to think about solution. Let me take back to you during my childhood days. I was 8 years old. I used to think about the challenges in my life. I used to think about the different problems as a kid. The problems were precisely because I was very, very ambitious, wanted to grow in life, wanted to conquer the world. And I don't know from where it came in my mind that I have to do something big. Belonging from a small town, it was something which I felt that would be a kind of a challenge to me. When I started growing up, I realized the challenges are still becoming big. It's becoming huge. Because I was into academics, I was told by my parents, like every other child, that you have to study very well in order to succeed. I felt and I focused. I felt that, okay, these are the 8 subjects. If I study well, I will become successful. So my entire attention was that. But often I had lots of questions in my mind. How to do this? How I can go to that step? If I'm seeing the president of India, how the person has become the president of India? What kind of challenge the person has seen but still has done something great? How the person can give so much of a contribution to the nation? How it is possible? Lots of how, why, all these things were there in my mind. One fine day, when I was 14 years old, I just went to my school library. There was a very, very, I would definitely like to give, lots of commendable, attribute from my end, because that gentleman wrote a very beautiful book, The Autobiography of the Missile Man. It happened because maybe, I think sometimes, when we manifest, when we think or we dream, our entire, ambition starts becoming or it starts going to that direction. I went to the school library, I read that book. And that book actually shaped me in such a way that where I am right now, I really give the credit to that book when I read it in class 8th. So, sometimes it's like a turning point for us. Because what I read in that book, I did not find it anywhere in my academics, which I really was seeking out. What I was seeking out that if you are surrounded with challenges and you really want to emerge as a winner, how would you become? What steps should you take? So when I started reading that book, I understood that the challenges are more to that gentleman than me. I felt that if he can do, he can become the president of India. I think I have also a way to go. Because the reading and the understanding and the total analysis of the book made me understood that if you have the perseverance, if you understand how to take the full benefit out of your resources, whatever you have, because we might have few people in our surrounding, we might have very skilled few resources in our surrounding, but it's always better to take the guidelines from those surroundings. And the dream which I was having from that very childhood, I often, understood that, this is how this book has actually shaped my life, and I really felt very, very nice. But when I started growing up, I realized that lots of questions again are there in my mind. Why this is not answered in our academics? Why still I have to look for somewhere else to get an answer? And yes, as we are so focused in our academics, it's very difficult to ask those questions from our teacher. We understand those questions, but we understand at a very late stage of life when we are 20. For an example, if I have to tell you very honestly, I got to know that how to book the flight tickets when I booked my first flight. I understood about the visa process when I went to any international location, that okay, there are some countries which is visa process free, while there are some country which requires to have a business visa. But I have to tell you very honestly, till the very childhood of mine, I had no clue and idea about it. Similarly, if I have to tell you some practical examples, like if I have to talk about how to get understanding about the technology, about the banking, I often used to visit the banks. I'm sure like many people, they visit the branch, the bank, but how many of us really understand the banking model? I was having a crave to learn business. I was having a crave to learn finance. I was having a crave to learn the economy of India. But it was so very difficult because I was not able to figure out how the business model works, how one can become a successful entrepreneur. I'm sure in India, many of the people are entrepreneurs, but how many people really know how the entire business model framework works? So these are some of the questions every time I used to ask through my academics, but I never used to get an answer. If I have to tell you very wisely and honestly, still I don't have any clue that how many of the things work. But the passion, the inquisitiveness, the learning, the crave to learn is still very, very high. Because when you are very passionately ambitious and you want to succeed in your various facets of life, you really want to keep your eyes and ears open and you want to learn and you want to succeed. So yes, when you are now in a fintech world, when you see how the banking world works, and you feel glad to see talking to the technology experts, you often think about that in India, now we have this UPI where everything is so fast and easy. Now the government is introducing the more technology. But why that technology is still not given to the kids of that age who are having the craving to learn, why the pattern is so strict that the kids don't understand a practical way to learn. I was thinking that what if the same thing which I'm seeing right now in my daily life could have been seen during my childhood days through some kind of videos. I'm very thankful to Bollywood because most of the time I used to see some movies and I used to see that, yes, this is how Europe looks like, or this is how the complete India is all about. But sometimes, we don't get that kind of facility that we can't visualize. So here, when you have a learning, when you want to learn, when you are so inquisitive, of course, there is something like a book which has helped me. But at the same time, we ideally should have a pattern of education where right from very childhood, the person who wants to become skilled resource, want to contribute to the nation, the person should have the authority to learn everything right from very childhood. Recently, I was talking to some parent and then said that the person belongs from Germany. He said that if you throw the kid at a very early stage in the swimming pool, the person will start learning swimming. You don't have to really wait till 20 to become the person, to make the person a good swimmer. I was thinking that why not for many of the inquisitiveness which we have? The many questions which the mind asks from us, why the same pattern is not, understood. Even if I have a tendency to learn about sports, why will I not be given an idea about sports? Or if I want to understand how the digital framework works, how many of us during the childhood were having any idea about it? In fact, recently I understood that every single country has their currency and the currency converter works, right? How? And you can do it. So the idea is that since day one, in case if the education framework works in a way that everything is so guided and framed for the people, for the children, they can actually visualize instead of only going through techniques. And yes, when we talk about digitalization, somewhere I feel that it has to be there for the kids as well. Why they should not understand, and why, if I say that if the same book which I learned during my 8th standard, what if I would have got the same book at, let's say now? It would not have helped me. It has helped me because I got right at the right time when I was really looking for answers. So similarly, all the pattern of the techniques and the learnings which we are getting, why not to introduce during our childhood days? If somebody is really looking to become something and want to really achieve the milestone the person has created, should be introduced and should be advanced in a way, and it should be redefined in a way that the education system should be helpful for the children. We had COVID recently, and what I feel that the challenges comes, and with the challenges, we often understand about the growth and opportunities. I always perceive challenges as an opportunity. So when this COVID came, I'm sure you all agree that we understood the learning curve went very high, especially because the virtual learning was introduced. I think the learning should not never have any barriers. If I want to learn, I can learn from anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter I belong from the urban community or I belong from the rural community. It should not really should be a blocker for me. I should be allowed to learn. And that's what I felt when this COVID came. because everybody was open to learn from anywhere. In fact, I was very much looking to have the degree from the US, and yes, I got it when this COVID was going on. Not only that, because being from the fintech world, and I was looking and I was working and I was doing excellent in my career, I also felt that, from deep dive, since from my childhood, I had a vision to also contribute and to be on the other side, because from your childhood you understand yourself. So I participated and I got the coveted title of Mrs. India Worldwide. So this all came because you get into the virtual learning, and yes, I was very much happy because wherever I was sitting across the globe, I was able to talk to the celebrity artists and getting the learning. I understood about the fitness, I understood about the health, I understood that it's not very important to go to the gym. It's not very important that you have to go to the health center to get it to be fit. What I understood that you just should be there at home and you do these exercises, you follow these diets, and you will be very healthy. So these information which I understood during this COVID time, I have to say this, that it was not there in my mind before. Of course, the pattern changed. We as a kid or we as an adult, we all started understanding, we started embracing the change. Today, India is doing so well, and I'm sure the contribution of the children is going to be extremely huge. So the advice is, of course, and the innovation is that let the pattern of education be in such a way that right during your childhood, you should know, if you want to learn artificial intelligence, nobody should stop you. If you want to become a business entrepreneur, nobody should stop you, because the business model should be available and the pattern should be taught to the kids so that every question like I have still in my brain should be answered to them. And yes, learning has no boundaries. Innovation should have no boundaries. I feel that nothing is impossible because the book told me, and I'm sure that, and I always feel that it's so very important for us. If we want to gift somebody, I think we should gift one of the book which will change anybody's life. I think this is something which is very, very essential, and I believe that let's have a country, let's have a life where, in case if we are not able to get it, we should forge it to get. And we should open all the doors of learning, because learning definitely has no boundaries. Thank you.